channel. If you are new here, my name is Alicia, and if you are not, welcome back. So today's video, I am going to run through my birth experience with the twins in honor of their birthday in 2 days. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So I never gave my birth experience or my birth story on my channel before, so I just wanted to do it because I think it was a crazy story but also a good experience that I just want to remember. So my whole pregnancy, I had perfect blood pressure, everything was great, you know, besides normal aches and pains and tiredness. Holding twins is a lot on your body, and yeah, you're just gonna be really tired. I felt like a big old whale, but all in all, it was a great experience for a pregnancy with having twins. I didn't have any complications, in which I thank Jesus for. So when you have twins, you are scheduled to be induced if you go to 38 weeks. They don't let you go past 38 weeks. With a single pregnancy, they do allow you to go to like 41 weeks, I believe. In some cases, 42 weeks. But with twins, they let you go to 38. So I was hoping to give birth before then, but I didn't. I went the whole 38 weeks. Which was the best thing for them anyway, so I'm still so grateful, because with twin pregnancy it's very common to give birth earlier because your body just gets big so fast and it doesn't know that you're holding twins. So it just goes by how big you are and like how big you're measuring, I guess. It's a weird thing, but my belly measured at like 45 weeks pregnant before I gave birth, so I gained so much weight. I'm still like almost 20 pounds over, but it's fine. It's fine. I was scheduled to be induced on October 13th, and that is the day that I gave birth to my twins. So before then, I was getting stress scans for about 6 weeks. Every single week they gave me stress scans to make sure that the baby's heart rate was good, that they weren't under any stress, that my fluid looked good, that their blood flow looked good, because the closer you get to, you know, the end of your pregnancy is more likely that things start happening. But thank God everything was fine. I swore I was gonna have them earlier because I kept going into the hospital for contractions, and I thought I was going into labor, but I wasn't. So we woke up. The hospital called me at like 5:30 in the morning on the 13th to say that they had a bed available, that if I wanted to come in now, I can. So we did. We started getting ready, and I think we got to the hospital around 7. And yeah, so we packed up the car, we got to the hospital, and I'm like, the whole way to the hospital, I'm just like so nervous. I'm just like so relieved in a way, because I'm just like, this is it. Like when you are pregnant, you have this worry, this constant like, is everything okay? Is everything okay? Like you're constantly wanting the baby to move, or, you know, make sure that your baby is alive and well and growing fine. So imagine 2 babies, you know, like one could be fine, one can't be fine, and it's just scary. Pregnancy is scary in general. So I just had this sense of relief going to the hospital, like this is it, like I'm finally gonna meet them. I've been good this whole time. I have faith God is gonna come through, my babies are gonna be fine, and I was just excited to meet them, but also relieved that I don't have to worry anymore about them like in my belly. So we get to the hospital, we get in a room, and I start like doing my hair over and using the bathroom and refreshing up and, you know, doing all the things that I'm not gonna be able to do, walking around and stuff, before they put the IV on me and start giving me Pitocin. So I do all that, and then at 9 o'clock my nurse is like, okay, let's go ahead and check your blood pressure. And they checked my blood pressure, and my blood pressure was high. And the whole entire pregnancy, my blood pressure was perfect. Everything about this pregnancy was like perfect. Like test wise, it was great. Like nothing. I was the perfect vessel to have a baby because I was healthy. I was a healthy weight. Like everything was good. So to have high blood pressure, I was like, what? Like how? So my nurse started checking my blood pressure every hour. She started me on Pitocin around 9 o'clock, and it was good. Like, I was fine. I was breathing through the contractions. I felt good. I felt like I can do this. I'm like, I'm totally gonna have these babies natural, no problem, not getting no epidural. Yeah, okay. So she was just worried. She's like, I don't know why your blood pressure is high. The first time I checked it was fine, and then it just shot up. So they were like really on top of me with that, making sure like I didn't go any higher, or you know, they would have to give me medicine and things like that. So I was like praying like that it stays the same or drops, because I didn't want to take medicine and do a whole thing. So they started me on Pitocin at 9. Around 1 o'clock they come to check. And the hospital that I gave birth at is like a training hospital. So we have like my main OB, which is my main doctor's like friend. So she was like, she really secured me like on her. She's like, she's great, no worries. She's experienced in breech birth, which is something I was worried about because both the babies were head down, but it was possible that, you know, one could come out breech or things like that. With twin pregnancies, there's so many worries. You can have like a perfect birth, head down, or you can have head down breech, or you can have natural birth C-section, or both C-section. It was so many different things that can happen. So I wanted to make sure that I was in the hands of someone who was very experienced, and which she was. So I have the main OB, and then I have a midwife, and then I have the trainee midwife. So the midwife and the trainee midwife was both checking me, and she was training her, making sure like we was good. It was her first twin pregnancy, girl, whatever. So I'm like their dummy. So they checked me at 1 o'clock, and I was 3 centimeters for like 2 months. So I bumped up to like 4.5 centimeters maybe. She's like, okay, we're gonna break one of your waters. I had fraternal twins, so I had double everything, 2 placentas, 2 water bags, 2 babies. So she breaks the Dia's water, and she's like, things are about to get intense. I'm like, okay. My nurse bumped down my Pitocin because the contractions were about to get intense. So it did get intense, really fast, and I was like breathing through it, and I'm just like, oh my god, like just water's just gushing out me, and I'm just like trying to like hold it together, and I'm just like breathing through my contractions. It got to the point where I couldn't even like really sit in the bed. I wanted to get up and move around. So my nurse puts a diaper on me, and she gives me a ball, and she's like, here, just, you know, bounce on the ball, move on the ball, sway your hips, just make sure that the monitor doesn't move off the baby. So I'm like, fine. So I'm on the edge of the bed, and I'm just like swaying, and you know, I'm just like getting to the point where I'm struggling. So I lay back down, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this is getting super intense. It hurts so bad. And then I start like, it's getting unbearable. So I start like biting the pillow and crying through my contractions, and my husband's just there, and he's just looking at me. He's like, I can't watch this. I can't watch you go through all this pain. Like, we need to do something. Like, do you want to get the epidural? And I'm like, I think I want to. Like, I wanted to push through, but it's like really hurting really bad. So I was like, you know what, let's just get the epidural and get some relief, because I'm gonna need energy to push these babies out. So we get the epidural. At this time it's like 4 o'clock. So I've been struggling for like 4 hours already, or 3 hours. So they come and check me, and I'm about 5.5 centimeters. He comes in, he asks us questions, and then he sets up. So I'm just like, okay, mind you, my belly is really big. Like, I am so big. I'm like a whale. So in order to get your epidural, you have to like round your back like that, so that the pockets in your spine can open up, and he can, you know, stick the needle in there. So that was the hardest part for me, because I couldn't round my back to the point where the pockets were open enough for my like lower back. So he tried the first time, he numbed my back, stuck the needle in, and he said it didn't work. He's like, I didn't get a good spot. And I'm like, okay. So he's like, I'm gonna try and go a little bit more up. So he goes a little more up, and he forgets to numb my back. So he like stuck the needle in there, and I'm just like, like it burns, like it was burning so bad. And they're like, stay still, and I'm just like, it hurts, like, oh my gosh. And he's like, that was a good one, like no worries. Like my nurse had to like push down on my back so my back could round. It was a mess. And Out of 100%, I was probably like 85% numb. I did feel something, but I didn't feel like it wasn't as intense before. So it was bearable. 4 o'clock, I got my epidural set. Then now it's 5 o'clock. So now the midwife and the trainee comes in and they're like, we see that you're contracting a lot. Like, we want to check you. And I'm like, okay, fine. Like, check me. I was at 9.5 centimeters. So between 4 o'clock and 5:30, I contracted like 4 centimeters. And I felt a shift, because at first I didn't feel the contractions, and then I started feeling them, and I'm like, hold on, I felt that once. I started breathing through it, and it wasn't like 100% intense, but I still felt it. So I'm like, okay, like, that's weird, but whatever. So they're like, oh, you're like almost fully dilated. We're gonna call the OB. So the OB comes in, she checks me, and I guess it was like a little part of, I guess, skin or whatever. She like takes her finger and pops it, and she's like, yeah, you're fully dilated now. We're ready to set you up. You're ready to go. Like, and I'm just like, wait, for real? Like, right now? She's like, yeah, you're ready to go. And I'm like, what? So she sets up the OR. When you have twins, you have to give birth in an operating room, just in case they have to do emergency C-section or anything goes wrong. They have all the equipment there. I had like 25 people in that operating room, like legs like this. Everyone is in there talking and looking, and it's just crazy. You have 2 baby crews, you have my anesthesiologist, you have the OB midwife trainee, my nurse, baby's nurses, and then at that time everyone was coming in for the night shift, so everybody was like getting ready to switch off in the operating room. So it was just like double people in there, and I was just like so nervous, and I'm just sitting there, and my husband just holds my hands like, you okay? And I'm like, yeah. So we prayed together, and I'm just like, okay. Like, they're setting me up, they're like, you ready? Da, da, da. And I'm like, yeah, like, I'm ready as I'll ever be. So they asked me a couple questions, and they're like, all right, tell me when you're ready to push. Like, she shut everybody up. She's like, can everybody be quiet? She's about to push. And then everybody just like, it was quiet. And then I started pushing, and I'm just tuning in on the nurse or the midwife saying 1, 2, 3. I had my husband on one leg, her on the other leg, and she's just counting, and the OB was like in front with the trainee. And I'm just like listening and pushing and pushing. And then once my husband was like, babe, I see him, I was like, and I just got so excited. I started like pushing, and I'm like, push, push, and I was like 10. And I just like kept on pushing, and I pushed, and Jediah came out, and it was just like, it was amazing. Like, I was crying, and after like the first push I was crying because I just felt like so much buildup, and I like pushed the first time and I was like cried it out a little bit. And he came out actually with the umbilical cord wrapped around his neck, which was a surprise because no one even suspected that. So he was fine. No, they took it off. David cut his umbilical cord. They took him, cleaned him up a little bit, bring him back. It was like really beautiful. And then with Javiel's water still wasn't broken. So they break his water, and, you know, he wasn't engaged into my canal. So let's say this is my birth canal. His head was like over here. So they're like, oh, we're going to wait a little bit. But personally, I feel like they didn't wait that long for him to like drop into the canal. So the OB like goes in there and like flips him around and like pulls him down. So my husband's just like looking like, oh snap, like his body's out. I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I didn't feel anything. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, like they're pulling the Javiel down. I'm like, what? So then I feel like a pressure, like he popped into my canal. Like I felt it, like she pulled him in. She's like, all right, you just have to push his head out. And I'm like, oh snap, like this is crazy. So then I do like 2 pushes, and he comes out. He came out, and he was just like unresponsive, like just limp, like nothing. And they like have him on me, and they're like rubbing him, and I'm just like, oh my god, like is everything okay? Like is he okay? Is he alive? And me and my husband just looking, and we're like looking, and then my husband just like, you can see the tears form in his eyes, and then I start crying, and he's like, is he okay? And then all you hear is and they like cut his umbilical cord mad quick and just took him to the little warmer, and they had to like rush him over there to like get all that fluid out. I guess from her flipping him, we got all that amniotic fluid in his mouth and his nose and everything, so he had like all of it in there. You know, he's trying to breathe. So they were like taking care of him, and they're like, oh my god, like I was just like, oh my god, I can't believe like they're both out of me. Like that's crazy. Like that's so crazy. And then they bring him back and they're like, his temperature was a little bit low. So I was like, okay, so I gave him skin to skin. And then they were like, we're just waiting for the placentas. Like, we have to get them down, da da da. And I'm like, okay, cool. Mind you, I have 2 placentas in me. So I'm like, okay, fine. I'm just holding him and talking to David. We're taking pictures and being all cute. And it's just so surreal that they're even out of me. And they're just so tiny. And I was just so happy. I was just thanking God the whole time. Like, thank you, Lord, for beautiful babies. And just that they're okay. Like, they're both breathing. They're alive. And they're here. So now 1 placenta comes down. Perfect, cool. The other placenta, however, got like stuck. Well, it was still attached to my uterus lining. So because it was attached, it took a while for it to come down, like a while to come down. So at that point, I start shaking because of the epidural. So I get the shakes. Now I'm cold. I ask the nurse to like, take the baby, please. So they take him. David goes. They bring him to the other room with the babies. I'm by myself. And I just have mad nurses everywhere. So this one nurse was just like talking to me. And she's like putting warm blankets on me. And I'm just like shivering. And they're like digging in me like for so long. It's like 4 hands in me. Just digging, digging, digging. But that's when I was like thanking God. I'm like, oh my goodness, thank you, Lord, that I decided to get the epidural, because this is crazy. Like, they were digging in me, and then they finally get the placenta out, but then I start hemorrhaging. I guess like another piece of placenta was like still stuck in there, so I start bleeding and hemorrhaging, and then they're just in there like digging like for so long, like digging. And then finally I'm shivering, I'm nervous, the lady's talking to me, I'm trying to distract me, they're in me, they're digging in me all crazy. And then finally it was over. She's like, okay, we got it, we're good. I bled 2 liters of blood. 2 liters. When I think about 2 liters, I think about a 2-liter soda. That's how much blood I lost. So, which was like very scary to me. Like, I lost a lot of blood. So then they get me all ready, put me on another bed, bring me to the other room. Once I get to the room, mind you, still have the shakes. Still have the shakes. The nurse is like, the baby's nurse is like, they're hungry. Are you ready to breastfeed? And I'm like shaking. And I'm just like, honestly, like, I'm not mentally stable to breastfeed them right now and try to get their small mouths on me and do that whole thing right now. So I can't breastfeed them right now. So she's like, okay, I'm just gonna give them some formula. So I'm like, okay. So she feeds them, and I felt like mixed feelings about it because, you know, I didn't want their first feeding to be formula, but at the same time, I just brushed it off because I'm like, I'm doing what's best for my babies, and they're hungry, and I can't do it right now. Like, I'm not gonna have the patience and the grace to do it right now. So it was fine. And then I still had the shakes, and then finally they start dying down, and they're like, okay, we have to switch your room. The doctor came in and she's like, we need you to be on a catheter. You need to be on this medicine because you were diagnosed with preeclampsia the day I give birth. Preeclampsia. Great. And then I, you know, my blood pressure and everything, and because I hemorrhaged, I had to take like a whole bunch of medicines for like a whole 24 hours or 48 hours or something. Then they put the catheter in me, everything, and then we went to the postpartum room. Once we get to the postpartum room, you know, we set the babies up. It was really peaceful. I'm just hungry. I'm like, I need food. I need food. I'm so hungry. Like, I need food right now. The cafeteria in the hospital wasn't open. It was like 9 o'clock at night at that time. So my husband orders like from this Chinese spot nearby. I order a wonton egg soup. The worst decision I could ever make. He ordered like sesame chicken with fried rice or something, and I ordered soup, trying to be all like, oh, I need something light, I need to be healthy. I was like, this soup is disgusting. The egg wasn't even cooked all the way. It was so bad. I was so mad. I was like, what? Like, what is happening right now? So I end up eating his food. I'm like, share, like, leave me some food because I want to eat that. He's like, okay. So he like gave me the rest of his food. I don't know if you hear my babies. So I eat his food, and then, you know, the whole night I couldn't really sleep because Javier was very congested from the amniotic fluid, and I just was up because he was gagging on it, he was sniffling, he was coughing a lot and sneezing a lot, and I just held him and I breastfed, and it was a good night, but I was really tired. And then the next day I finally got to shower and get myself together, and we took little pictures, and my baby came, my oldest son came, and he was just so excited to see his brothers, and it was beautiful. I was so happy. And for all that I went through, I only stayed in the hospital for 2 days. That first night, and then the second night, and then that third night my doctor came and she's like, you're walking around, you have your own pajamas on, are you ready to go home? And I'm like, I am ready to go home. That hospital bed was so uncomfortable. I couldn't sleep. Like, it was bad. When they came to like, right after I gave birth, when they came to like press on your uterus to like make sure it's going down properly, I was so tender. My uterus was so tender from them digging in there and digging in there. It was just like, it was so bad. So I was ready to go home, and I was just like, nah. So I was like very sore, but I was able to walk around. I was able to, you know, do all the things that I wanted to do. Yeah, like I think I had a really good experience though. Javi was little on the smaller side, so he had to get a car seat test where they leave him in a car seat for about an hour with, you know, his oxygen level, his heart rate, with not like going anywhere, not stopping, anything like that. Once he passed the test, we were ready to go. I was like, okay, let's get out of here, let's go home. And yeah, like that was it. And now we're here and they're about to be 1, and I am so sad. My babies are about to be 1 year old. This is crazy. I've been breastfeeding this whole year, and it wasn't until this past month that I have been supplementing. I've been mixing breast milk with formula. I'm giving them the Infamil toddler, is like a toddler transition one, and yeah, they've been fine and taking bottles, and I'm like, it's bittersweet because I'm like, I don't want to finish breastfeeding, but like I want to finish breastfeeding. But they started walking at 10 months, and they're starting to like try to talk and express themselves, and they have such different personalities, and it's been a great year. It's been a beautiful year. I'm so happy. I'm so grateful that they're healthy, that they've been healthy. They've been doing great. They've been amazing, and I'm just really happy. I just wanted to share my birth story because I can't believe they're about to be 1. But yeah, I just thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this story time birth story. If you like it, and yeah, thank you so much for watching. Love you. Bye.